So I suppose I think we are good to go to the first speaker now in a moment, and that is Minister for the Environment, Climate and Communications, and Minister for Transport, Mr. Eamon Ryan. He's came up on screen. Welcome, Minister. I'll just very briefly introduce yourself, and I suppose really just to note, he's the Minister for Climate Communications and the Minister for Transport. He's elected and represents Dublin Bay South since the 2020 general election. And I suppose, Minister, we've all seen him regularly on TV over the last last 2 weeks with COP27, where he was appointed as the European Union's ministerial representative in the loss and change negotiations. So I suppose really it's the Minister they want to hear rather than me. So Minister, I'll hand over to yourself, and we look forward to hearing your presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. To join you for this very seminal date in the environmental calendar now. Especially this, the first year the National Air event has been jointly hosted by the EPA and our own department. I regret I can't be there in person. I have to apologise for the bells in the background. They're the Dáil Éireann call to prayer, as it were. So, and that's the reason I can't be there in person. I have to be here in the Dáil. But I very much welcome the chance to maybe just share and set out some of what I think reasons why it's been a seminal year on the issue of air pollution. And I want to maybe, I suppose, just go through, if I can, so some of the developments and set out why the government is giving such a priority to cleaning the air that we breathe to protect our health and the well-being of our people that we serve. I would also illustrate that this is a task that can't be undertaken in isolation, but requires the broadest possible coalition of state actors and public participation. We've learned a lot of lessons, I think, over the last 12 months, which will be remembered as the year that the health benefits of low smoke zones, enjoyed by citizens in our cities and large towns for over 30 years, are now finally being brought to every town and village in our country. Before I reflect on that and the lessons that we learned, we seek to increase the ambition of cleaning our air further still. I think it would be worthwhile, as you mentioned there at the start, reflecting on how clean air agenda was also a focus of discussion at COP27 over the last couple of weeks. And this is important for us domestically as we continue to realise the synergies between our domestic climate action and our policy pathways towards cleaner air. The self-styled African COP, as it's called, represents a unique opportunity to make the urgent case for tackling air pollution in a continent that's hardest hit by the climate crisis and to mobilise resources that's needed. The debate in Sharm el-Sheikh focused on financing a just transition away from fossil fuel-led growth while adapting to climate change. That climate change and air pollution share many of the same issues caused by the burning of fossil fuels, so these problems need to be solved together. Research was interesting. The research by the Clean Air Fund reveals that introducing clean air measures in just 4 of Africa's fastest growing cities could save some 125,000 lives, could unlock some 20 billion euros and cut greenhouse gas emissions by 20% by 2040. So we can see clean air is vital to human and planetary health, yet 99% of the world's population does not have access to it. The primary sources of air pollution are also key drivers of global emissions, revealing a crucial opportunity to improve outcomes for people and the planet. Discussions at COP also considered how we can advance a multi-sectoral and intergenerational clean air agenda, inspiring new creative ways of elevating action on air quality and tactics to engage different generations and stakeholders effectively. That's important. Despite some of our concerns around civil participation at this COP, the youth of the world made their voice heard. Children have been heavily affected by climate-related disasters this year. 2 months on from the floods in Pakistan, schools for more than 2 million children remain inaccessible. At least 10 million children in the Horn of Africa are affected by drought. And in Nigeria, 1.5 million children are at risk of disease and malnutrition because of floods. So air pollution and climate crisis are caused by that same problem, the burning of fossil fuels. And more than 90% of the children worldwide inhale dirty air as a result of that use of those fuels. Air pollution, be it through crop burning, toxic waste, or heavy industry, has already taken over 10 million lives and cost the world 8.1 trillion, with poor communities suffering most. In July of this year, the UN General Assembly recognised the right to a clean, healthy and sustainable environment, including the right to clean air, as a human right. Ireland was a co-sponsor of this resolution, but despite emerging legislation around the issue, there is so much more that can be done to improve the health of impacted communities. Our challenge as a global community is to determine which efforts should be scaled and deployed to secure that clean, healthy air. How can we ensure impact communities are heard and included in the devising and development of these solutions? How can we ensure that the human right to clean air is upheld at both a national and local level? Solutions to these questions require solidarity, which is why as lead negotiator in the EU on the issue of loss and damage, I was pleased that as a conference we confirmed our commitment to support the most vulnerable on our planet through financial contributions to loss and damage funds, a whole range of different funds, a mosaic of funding solutions. This decision now starts a process to explore new financing methods and take major emitters to task. Progress in broadening the contributor base to include new innovative sources of financing has the potential to include sectors like aviation, shipping, and the fossil fuel industry. There's also scope for exploring the potential for financing and debt relief, especially for vulnerable countries through the multilateral development, the World Bank, the IMF. The commitment of the conference to keep 1.5 degrees alive was also crucial. Limiting global temperatures below that limit, below pre-industrial levels, is vital, as beyond that mark, the climate impact will quickly become catastrophic and in many cases irreversible. It was frustrating to see that further much needed measures of mitigation and the phase out of fossil fuels were resisted by a number of large emitters. The world has committed itself again to that task of phasing down the use of coal, and for the first time, to the critical importance and need for the development of renewable energy. The experience of the last 2 weeks demonstrated to me that action in this space is difficult and that vested interests will use every tactic to frustrate progress. But we didn't need to travel to Sharm el-Sheikh to learn that lesson. Attempts to move to a national smoky coal ban in Ireland failed under previous administrations because of legal threats that coal companies issued about the unequal treatment of coal compared to peat and wood. Notwithstanding the evidence that extending the smoky coal ban nationwide, but providing some regulatory controls for wet wood and peat would result in significant improvements to the quality of Ireland's air, with corresponding benefits for the health of the Irish people. Previous administrations, unfortunately, were not prepared to make the difficult political decisions required to introduce those measures. As a consequence, the only progress that could be made was a gradual introduction of further low smoke areas and the introduction of minor technical amendments to the standards for coal and manufactured coal and biomass products. Given this impasse and the fact that the European Environment Agency report Air Quality in Europe 2020 indicated that in 2018 there were 1,410 premature mortalities arising from air pollution in Ireland, and that the vast majority of these, some 1,300, are attributable to the fine particulate matter primarily associated with domestic fuel burning. The programme for government committed, therefore, to extend the smoky coal ban to new towns and over the term of government move towards a full nationwide ban. In September 2020, I extended the regulations to include areas with a population over 10,000, as was in the commitment. And since that point, my government has worked to develop a regulatory framework that will result in the removal of bituminous smoky coal from the Irish market. This work was undertaken in the full knowledge that to fulfil the programme for government commitment, measures needed to be introduced to address emissions from other solid fuels, including wood and peat, would be needed. In the absence of such measures, it was not legally possible to proceed with the national ban. Not doing so was not an option. Ever-expanding research continued to demonstrate the links between air quality and even wider impacts on human health, such as on cognitive development and mental health. These negative health impacts come at a cost, both personally and economically. In addition to premature deaths, air pollution causes absence from work, reduced productivity, higher spending on medicines, and increased hospital admissions. The World Health Organization has estimated the direct economic of air pollution, the economic costs to be in the region of 1.47 trillion euros in Europe. And for Ireland, around 1.3% of GDP, or 2.3 billion each year. The health impacts of air pollution, and in particular pollution generated as a result of solid fuel burning, have therefore been well established in research and are not disputed. Reducing premature deaths and other negative health impacts, as well as improving quality of life for all, especially those with conditions that are exacerbated by poor air quality, is the main aim of our national air quality policy and of regulations that were ultimately agreed and introduced. Throughout the course of 3 different forms of public consultation, undertaken over nearly 2 years, the direction of travel was made clear. To address this public health and environmental crisis, new solid fuels regulations would be introduced across a range of fuels to ensure that the most polluting would no longer be available for general sale on the Irish market, and that as particulate matter comes from burning not only bituminous coal, but also other solid fuels, that we must regulate to improve the standards of all fuels available on the market. I was also equally clear that turf cutting by citizens for use in their own homes is a traditional activity across many peatlands, and that measures were required to reduce the emissions associated with burning peat, but which respect these traditions. Of course, turf was not the primary focus of the regulations. Grasping the nettle and finally delivering a nationwide ban on dirty coal after a decade of prevarication and half measures, in order to extend the associated environmental health benefits to all our people, was our ultimate objective. Most of the debate, both political and public, focused solely on the use of peat and our traditional culture attachment to the bog as a source of cheap energy. This was precisely the calculation made by those vested interests who had for so long resisted attempts to control the quality of solid fuels made available to the Irish market, that once turf entered the equation, the political fallout would be so toxic that to countenance progressing any commitment to the Irish people would not be possible. I'm proud to say that with the unity of purpose, we prevailed, and the new solid fuel regulations come into effect at the end of October. In the context of the energy and cost of living crisis, their introduction was always going to be challenging. But I'm heartened by reports from throughout the country that both the public and the solid fuel industry have responded positively to the new regulatory framework, and that we are seeing high levels of compliance. Compliance will be supported further by a commitment to work with the local authority sector to enhance enforcement through the establishment of a specialised air quality enforcement coordination body. The Local Authority Environment Enforcement Performance Report 2021, which was published by the EPA last week, has again noted that local authorities need to deploy and target resources more effectively in order to improve the quality of our air. I stand ready to work with the local authority sector to develop a more coordinated and comprehensive approach to air enforcement. There has been ongoing engagement with the sector over the past 2 years to develop a shared service that will assist enforcement personnel on the ground to enhance provision. The EPA report highlights the necessity to move beyond discussions and now introduce such a service. With the introduction of a new solid fuel regulations and the imminent launch of that enhanced enforcement service, we can now turn our attention to other strategic priorities, including the publication in the first quarter next year of Ireland's first national clean air strategy. This will describe how we will enhance and protect the quality of the air that we breathe and realise the full environmental and health benefits of cleaner air through a comprehensive cross-government programme of policies and measures that will tackle all sources of air pollution, including those from transport, agriculture and residential sectors. The strategy will also build upon the ambition of Ireland's Climate Clean Action Plan, which includes a range of actions required to realise the synergies between coherent air and climate policy. These include the electrification of the road transport fleet, taking action in relation to ammonia, improving the energy efficiency of our home, and reducing our reliance on fossil fuels. The provision of data from the EPA, including the annual inventory and projections, as well as our enhanced national ambient air quality monitoring programme, give us a comprehensive evidence base to tackle the source of air pollution, which needs to be addressed. Continued improvements to our air quality monitoring and modelling will further assist in this regard. I am proud to have supported the expansion of the EPA's National Ambient Air Quality Monitoring Network, which has seen a significant increase in the number of new monitoring stations installed across the country. The expansion of the network will be completed this year with a total of 116 stations in place. We are also supporting the Life Emerald project, through which the EPA will use the network to provide a national 3-day air quality forecast and near real-time mapping of air pollutants throughout the country. This will improve Ireland's ambient air quality management capabilities and develop a system that will provide better information to the public. While Ireland now has a world-class ambient air quality monitoring network with real-time data available online, its effectiveness and potential can only be realised once the general public becomes more aware and more knowledgeable about how to access and interpret its data. Similarly, measures to encourage people to switch to less polluting methods of home heating or to make different transport choices can only achieve success if we gain sufficient levels of public support through increased public awareness, improved understanding, and the promotion of positive behaviours. We need to clearly communicate the benefits of clean air and the measures being taken to achieve it to all stakeholders, from members of the public through to NGOs and other state bodies. An effective and inclusive communications plan will be central to achieving these aims, and I look forward to hearing ideas and initiatives emanating from today's event to inform how we progress this further. Conclusion. I'd like, if I can recall, the UN General Assembly resolution on a right to clean, healthy, and a sustainable environment. Clean air is now a human right. A stable climate is a human right. Healthy nature and access to it is a human right. But today, air pollution is denying billions of people of their rights, with the poorest in society again suffering the worst impacts. We know what we must do to change this both locally and globally, to invest in renewable energy, accelerate the transition away from fossil fuels, move to zero-emission vehicles, more active forms of transport. And the call then is for clean air, the same call that we make on climate action. It's to speed up our actions. It's to recognise the urgency and immediacy of what we need to do. The deadly smog that settled over London back in December 1952 caused some 12,000 deaths. And that winter forced the world to face the dangers of air pollution and inspired a new movement. That movement continues and finds expressions today in calls for climate action, climate justice, and calls for clean air. The past weeks have shown us that we can respond to interrelated threats, that we can actually take action and set policy positions that protect our health and people. I wish you well today in the conference. I regret I can't be there, as I said, but I hope the outcome of your deliberations today can take us further down the path to a cleaner air for all our people. Thank you.